Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to be recreating a very special makeup look, and that is the look I wore on my wedding day. We are coming up on October, and October marks my 1-year wedding anniversary with my husband, and this is a look I feel like will work for anybody who likes to wear makeup, or even people who don't wear makeup and want a little bit of something. So without further ado, let's jump right into this video. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to prime my skin, and on my wedding day I used the Tatcha silk canvas. So with the silk canvas, there's a little scoop that you can use. I lost that very early on, so I just kind of work my fingers clockwise and counterclockwise just to get about that much product on, and then I start in the center of my face, pull it outwards and over my eyelids, under my eyes. It's just kind of like a general, almost like a glaze for the skin. So next I'm gonna take my Charlotte Tilbury Hollywood Flawless Filter in shade number 2, and I'm gonna apply that to the top of the cheekbones. So on my wedding day, timing got away from me. I thought it was gonna be a very quick process. I thought I knew exactly what I was gonna use, what I was gonna do. So, you know, I feel like I got a little too overconfident with my makeup application on that day because over the years I have done numerous weddings in my career as a makeup artist, and I was like, it's my wedding day. I know exactly what I want to do. I know exactly how I want to look, and I know exactly which products I'm going to use. Yeah. Fast forward, I started my makeup maybe half an hour before I was supposed to leave the house, and I totally freaked out. I second guessed everything I was going to use. For a second, I thought I was going to only use products that are currently available, but I'm like, no, there are products that have been discontinued. I have in my collection that I love more than anything, so I'm going to use those. And then I was like, wait. So the day of, it became a little bit of a hot mess. I started grabbing different products, and you will see here I have a mix of products that are still available and products that are discontinued. For the products that are discontinued, there are other products I love I talk about on my channel. If you want to find something that I also love that is still available, go over to my website, check out the makeup library, and there will be all of the products in my collection. You can find reviews and tutorials of me talking about and using the product. So the first product I'm going to use is the KKW Beauty Light Contour Stick. Now, this is a product that I grabbed last minute on the day of. And I grabbed this product because my best friend back home in Virginia was supposed to be my maid of honor, but when I got married, the pandemic was happening and she couldn't come to Canada. So it ended up just being very, very small, me, my husband, and then our 2 closest friends here in Canada. So I was like, I need something about my best friend just with me on the day for kind of like good luck. So she'd given me this set for Christmas. So I was like, perfect, I will use those. And with these products, I just blend it with my fingers. I use my fingers almost exclusively for cream products on the day. So I use this to contour, to have kind of like my best friend slash maid of honor with me on the day. And that was that. So next I'm gonna use the Stila convertible color in the shade Rose, and this color looks quite intense. If you know me, you know I love blush. So I'm going to tap that right up on the top of the cheekbone, a little bit through the temples. So on the day of my wedding, I wanted to create kind of like an underpainting technique. So this is a technique I used a lot when I was working in makeup as a freelance artist. Even on counter, I would do this technique with like lipsticks and stuff like that. I always like to layer cream products under complexion products. That way you can start creating a natural shape, and it's also, if you don't have foundation, concealer on, it's a little bit easier to blend your products, and if you mess up, you can remove it. You're not disrupting a lot of stuff underneath, and you can go a little bit heavier. And it's also great for making your makeup last longer because you have something for it to kind of stick to, for something for your makeup to adhere to. So next I am going to apply a little bit of a lip balm. I remember on the day I was worried about my lips looking thin, and you know, everything had been going on. There were no injectable services, so I wasn't able to get my lips done like I normally get done before my wedding, so I used my Dior Lip Maximizer. And this is just a nice one. It's a hyaluronic acid based lip plumping product that will just help kind of hold moisture in and make the lips look a little more juicy. So next I ended up using concealer, and on the day of I ended up using 3 different concealers because, like I mentioned earlier, I just couldn't make up my mind when choosing what product. So for my under eyes, I used the Lancome Mackie Complete Concealer in the shade 220 Light Buff. Sadly, this has been discontinued. It's one of my favorite concealers of all time. So I just dot this under my eyes. So I used this to kind of brighten up my under eye area. For my cheeks, where I have some redness that I didn't want to show through, I used my Lancome Efficern's Waterproof Concealer, and this is also in the shade Light Buff. So I use this for areas of my complexion that have more redness that I don't want to be there. So with a little bit, I just like to apply it to my chin. So on the day of the wedding, I did end up using a powder foundation just because, I don't know, I had in mind to use a different foundation, and then I was like looking through and I'm like, what foundation am I going to use? So I ended up going with a powder foundation. So I did some of my heavy lifting concealer work under the powder foundation. So with this Lancome Mackie Complete Concealer, I just used a little bit to kind of spread out. So with the Lancome Efficern's concealer, I worked with my fingers because when I'm working on myself, that's something I do a lot. I just put a dot on my finger and I spread it over any areas that I'm prone to redness, flushing, and blushing that I don't want to be there. So by doing this, it allows you to need less coverage with your proper foundation. So for me, I get a little red around the corners of my nose, around the nostrils, on the bridge, on my chin, and then I took my ring finger to press out that under eye concealer. And this is a great benefit of working with cream products, and by doing a little bit of this underpainting technique before you apply a powder foundation or even a regular foundation, when you're working with just like prime skin or prepped skin, you can use your fingers, and this allows products to really melt into the skin. Using the warmth of your fingers on the warmth of your face, you just allow everything to kind of meld into the skin, become part of your skin. If I was doing this type of look on a client before a special event, I would do this with a makeup sponge. So I took a little brush. Now, other than the brush I used to apply my powder foundation, I cannot remember any of the brushes because on the day of, I hadn't started doing social media makeup yet, so all of my brushes were just in different like little containers, and I just kept grabbing rapid fire. But today I'm gonna use my hourglass brush, and I'm gonna use this just to kind of feather in any of the edges. So on the day of my wedding, I also used the Laura Mercier Secret Camouflage Concealer. I use shade SC2. You have the more kind of yellow shade for counteracting redness. Then you have the more peachy shade for counteracting blue-purple colors in the skin. I always take my brush, work in between both shades to kind of create a custom shade. And I use this to correct pigmentation or acne breakouts. So when I got married, I had more visible hyperpigmentation than I do now because since having that done, I have done some IPL to lighten up hyperpigmentation, kind of age spots, sun-related damage. So I'm gonna use this little bit of concealer just to cover up some of the areas where I do have some really stubborn spots that the foundation or the concealer on its own won't cover. So on the day of my wedding, I thought I was gonna either use my MAC Face and Body Foundation or my Chanel, I think at the time it was called Perfection Lumiere Velvet, and it's now called Ultra Le Tint Velvet. I thought I was using one of those two foundations, and then I'm like, no, it might look too heavy in pictures. So then I remember I ran in here to my makeup room and I ended up grabbing the Bare Minerals Original and Matte formula. So I'm going to start with the Bare Minerals Original formula. And with this powder foundation, since it is a loose mineral, I don't like working with too much product. So I open up the sifter to where there's only 3 of the little holes visible, pour it into the cap, and then my favorite brush to apply loose mineral makeup is the Elizabeth Arden Mineral Foundation brush. So I like to place my brush into the cap, swirl into the product, really swirl it in counterclockwise and clockwise, tap it off, and then I like to start by stippling all over my skin. So everywhere I use concealer, stipple over that, stipple right over the eyes. And then I will do that on both sides using a tiny amount of product. So this is almost like a rough coat. This is kind of pressing the powder onto the skin. Now, if you follow the Bare Minerals kind of instructions, you're supposed to swirl it in, tap off the excess, and then go straight into buffing. But if you've already done like I've done and applied powder products under this mineral powder foundation, you start buffing, you're gonna move everything. So then it's almost like a wasted effort doing your kind of setting, doing like your cream products underneath it if you're just gonna buff everything right away and move it around. So I like to start by pressing it in. That way I can maintain the coverage and the product placement. And then I like to take a little bit more. So I use about this much. It's kind of hard to see because as you work with the mineral makeup and swirl into the cap, they do get a little grubby looking, but I work with a tiny amount. And then now I'm gonna swirl in again. I really like to work the minerals into the brush, tap it off, go back to the first side, you press that powder coat in, and then start buffing. Now, for me, applying mineral makeup is not the quickest foundation application. It's one of the more time-consuming ones because you really want to buff in. So for me, I normally buff foundation or mineral foundation in for about a minute per side. So that's about 3 minutes. So I'm not gonna keep you here for the entire 3 minutes. I'm gonna buff the second layer all over my face and I'll be right back. Okay, so I have that powder base buffed all over, and now I am gonna go in and use the Bare Minerals Matte Foundation. So I don't know if I mentioned it, but the shade I used in the original foundation is Fair Ivory 02. And then before the day of the wedding, I had prepped my skin. I had done a fake tan, and this shade is way too light for me when I'm fake tan. So I'm like, oh no, my body is tanned, and then my face was too light. So then I used the matte formulation in Fairly Medium. And the matte foundation, compared to the original foundation, the shades do run a little bit darker. So I took a little bit of the matte foundation and same brush. This time I directly went from swirling my brush into the product, tapping it off. I go on the perimeter of my face and I used this to add some warmth and definition. So think about this almost as like the first step of contouring with a powder. Now, if you are getting married, doing a special event, or just wearing a look like this for your kind of everyday life, I wouldn't recommend taking this much effort to complexion. You can simplify it by just getting a foundation that matches your current body skin, whether you're wearing a fake tanner or not. That is part of where my lack of planning and being overconfident came back to bite me in the bottom. So then with that same foundation, since it was darker than my face and it was gonna be a better blend for my fake tan body on the day, I remember I took it and I really worked it into my neck. And mineral powder foundation, they are a great powder foundation. I like using them especially when I was freelance and working with male clients, because mineral powder foundations are a foundation that works really well for men, because if you go like I'm doing now and buff around areas where there's facial hair, the powder does not cling to hair. So whether it's facial hair, you have peach fuzz, around the eyebrows or even around your hairline, this product won't cling to it and look heavy like a liquid or a cream would. And I remember on the day of, I was so nervous things wouldn't blend or it would be really noticeable that my tones weren't correct. I took more and I even did the back of my neck. Now that complexion was on, we had our foundation on, concealer, we had those under base products. Now is when I started to go in and I started working with setting the base. So with mineral makeup, I always like to melt it into the skin because as minerals kind of start working onto the skin, they start kind of breaking up, sinking into the skin. They start to kind of emulsify and melt into the skin. So I like to speed that process up by using something like Max Fix Plus. This is more of a heavier setting spray, meaning compared to being an all water base, it has a glycerin base. And glycerin acts as a humectant, which is gonna help pull moisture in, which means you're gonna kind of speed up that melting process. That's why if you were someone who gets a little heavy-handed with your powder application, something like Fix Plus or even something like the Pixie Milky Mist, which both have a really high concentration of glycerin, they will help kind of melt powders into the skin just a little bit more natural. So generous coat of Fix Plus. My eyelids already have a little bit of that touch-up primer on it. They had some of the concealer, they have foundation, so my eyelids are well prepped. On the day of my wedding, I ended up grabbing for this little palette. This is a Z palette that was in collaboration with Sephora. And this is my palette where I keep random eyeshadows. So in here we have a tester of one of the old Dior eyeshadow quints. And this is number 647 Undressed. They no longer make this. This is one of my all-time favorite Diors. And this little package is because I received this as a gift when I worked at Nordstrom. So this was a counter sample that I was gifted when I worked there. I referred number 15 in this peachy shadow, and I'm just gonna apply this all over my eyelid. On the day of my wedding, I kept it true to how I do my makeup in everyday life. I use the same brush for everything, so I'm gonna stick with the referent number 15 for the entire eyeshadow application, and I'm gonna go into this pale kind of cream color, and I'm gonna take that and go right under my eyebrow. This will serve as kind of like a base to help blend crease colors into, almost like you can think of this as like a transitional color or a brow highlight. And then I am gonna go into this mid shade, which is more of like a neutral kind of rosy taupey brown. Same brush, tilt my chin back, look down, place this brush into the socket and work your way back and forth. And by tilting your chin back and looking down, it will stretch the eyelids without lifting up your eyebrow. So that way you don't have to worry about distorting the look when you look straight ahead. Everything's where you need it, but you can see things a little bit more visibly. I just like to use my handheld mirror and look down. So I'm gonna look down, keep your eyebrows relaxed, and just windshield wiper motion back and forth, a few little circles to blend. So now I'm gonna go in with the darker taupey shade, point the brush, tilt my chin back again, and then now I'll kind of look down and at an angle, place this brush in the outer corner, drag it halfway across. Same thing, other side, drag this color almost at an angle. You're drawing almost like a little wedge shape. Whatever's left, look up, run it right under your eyes. And then take the point of the brush and barely plop it into this darkest shade. So take your brush, dot, lift, tap off any excess. I'm gonna look down, point of the brush, almost without closing my eyes completely, almost kind of squint slightly, and then just kind of whisper the darkest shade right over the top lash line, and that will kind of give you like a faux liner effect. Eye makeup is pretty much done. So the next to last step I used for my eyes is I used my Marc Jacobs Highliner eye pencil in the shade Wavelength. I am so sad these are being discontinued, but as you can see, it is a rich blue color. So what I like to do for this, use a handheld mirror, tilt your chin up, look back, and I'm gonna apply this to my upper waterline, and then I'll be right back. So off camera, I applied the Marc Jacobs eyeliner to my upper waterline, and then I applied a very generous coat of the Clinique Naturally Glossy Mascara. Now, if you're looking at this blue eyeliner, you're like, why did you use blue eyeliner on your wedding day? I love rich, vibrant blues for the upper waterline because if you think about color theory, blue counteracts yellow, and a lot of times the whites of our eyes can take this slightly kind of hazy yellow cast if you're a little tired, maybe allergies are flaring up. With me getting married in October, having allergies, my eyes were already itchy, a little bit irritable. So using something like a rich blue eyeliner in the upper waterline, it just really whitens up and brightens the overall eyes. And the mascara I used on my wedding day was the CoverGirl Clump Crusher Mascara, which is a phenomenal mascara. It's very similar to this Clinique Naturally Glossy, just more affordable. So that is the eye look I wore on the day of my wedding. Very, very basic. For eyebrows, I kept it very simple. I used my Shuamura hard brow pencil and I used the shade Seal Brown. For brows, even on my wedding day, don't put a ton of effort. I hold my pencil with a loose grip far down, and then I just kind of run through my eyebrows. When I am going to take the time to perfect my brow shape, I like to keep my brows slightly straighter, kind of round out the arch, and call it a day. So you can see I don't do a ton to my eyebrows, and I almost use the pencil as like a light flicking motion just to keep everything soft. Also, on my wedding day, I used the IT Cosmetics Brow Power Pomade, another great clear brow gel, then discontinued. And with this, all I did is swipe through my eyebrows to make sure they stayed in place. So now this part into the makeup routine is where things got a little crazy. And I remember I couldn't decide which products I wanted to use, so I was just grabbing things I knew I really enjoyed, throwing them on, and then being like, no, I want to use that product. So a lot of products ended up getting layered on. So I remember on the day of my wedding, I didn't want a very strong highlight. So for that, I reached for the most subtle highlighter I had in my collection at that time, which is my Clé de Peau Luminizer in number 14. I think this is Delicate Pink. And I remember I kept it super simple because I used the little brush that came in the compact. And then I just applied that to the high points of my cheeks. And I've used this Clé de Peau highlight in one of my videos I did a while back about using the most expensive makeup in my collection. And I mentioned it there that this Clé de Peau highlight is really, it's beautiful, it's subtle, it's not an intense highlight. You are not going to get a beaming from space highlight. You can see I'm really kind of building it up and you're just getting like a soft glow. That being said, these are really expensive. I believe it's, if I'm not mistaken, it's like $125. And I remember I bought this right before I left Nordstrom, right before I lost my discount. I bought one of these because I'd wanted it and it was the time because I didn't want to pay full price. So I remember I used this and then I remember thinking to myself, I want a little bit more highlight. So then I remember I grabbed my Laura Mercier Matte Radiance Highlighter in the shade Highlight 01. Today I'm just gonna use my rougher number 20 brush and right on the high points of my cheeks, I'm gonna buff that in. And I remember I got a little out of hand with my highlight because I remember I wanted to keep it really subtle and then it got built up to be too much. So I had more highlighter on than I anticipated, but that didn't stop me. I just kept going with the process, kept applying highlighter everywhere I wanted highlighter because I am gonna buff, which will tone down everything. So above the brows, because that gives you a little bit of a brow lift. Make sure I hit the temples because highlighting your temples is a great kind of like anti-aging makeup tip because as we get older, we lose volume in the temples. So highlighting right here in the temple will just give your skin back a kind of youthful plumpness. My chin, so my chin came forward, residual right on the bridge of my nose. On the day of my wedding, I used 3 bronzers. I remember I started off with one of my favorite bronzers, which is sadly discontinued. This is the Bare Minerals Invisible Bronzer in Fair. I wish they would bring this formula back. It was one of the best bronzers I've ever used. So I'm gonna apply this using a Rougher number 22 brush. Start far back in the hairline, press it into the hairline, bring it right over the cheek. And I remember I went in a very kind of straight motion because I wanted to really kind of shorten the look of my face because my face is longer than it is wide. So I wanted to add some shape to my face. I wanted to create more of a balanced face shape. So for that, I used my bronzer to go more at a straight line. So that way it created the illusion of my face being shorter. And then I took it across my forehead, nose, chin, one on to my neck. Pro tip, when you're doing makeup for a special occasion, if you can, do it with clothes on that you don't care about, or even better, do your makeup naked. If you do have clothes on, like I do, and you're wearing a black shirt like I am, keep a lint roller nearby to get the powder off you. It's easier to get off as you go instead of letting it accumulate. So I'm gonna get the makeup off my t-shirt and then I'll be right back. So once I had that Bare Minerals bronzer on, I was like, wait, I need something. Because now my face doesn't match my fake tan bronze. I'm a different color bronze than my body. So then I grabbed my Hourglass Ambient Lighting Bronzer in Nude Bronze Light. And I remember I took this color and went slightly higher and I started working almost at an angle. Because then I felt like using the Bare Minerals bronzer in a straight line, while it had added a little bit too much rosiness to my skin, my fake tan had a little bit more of a peachiness, and using it in that straight line motion, it had almost shortened the look of the face too much, and I wanted to still look like myself. So then I took this bronzer, which has a little bit more of a peachy undertone, and then I started making a triangle, almost to kind of connect the colors in that way. Then you're kind of getting some of that round or length back to the face, so my face didn't look too short. And then for good measure, took some on the side of my face and my neck to get that peachiness that was back into the bronzer. And then I remember thinking, I don't want to use blush, I want to keep it with bronzer because that's look more natural. So then I used the Too Faced Sweetie Pie bronzer, and this is a beautiful bronzer. It has this cute little kind of like pie detail to it, but it's discontinued and makes me sad. So I remember I took this, swirled it around, popped this on the apple of the cheek, and kind of through here. And then I was thinking, no, because when I naturally get bronzed and I get a tan, I burn because my skin tone is quite fair. I'm German and Irish background, so I burn more than I tan. So with having a fake tan, I needed to add on the blush because then that would create more of a realistic look. So then I remember I started off with Marc Jacobs Air Blush in the shade Flesh and Fantasy, another gorgeous product that's been discontinued. So I remember I just worked into those colors, and then I remember I went in on the cheeks because when I buffed, I knew it was gonna kind of tone everything down. So then I remember I put it through my cheeks, I worked on the temples, my nose, my chin, center of my neck to kind of bring harmony back to the skin. I remember thinking I need some on my eyes, so then I put it on my eyes. And then I was like, maybe this is not enough color. Maybe this is not the right color. So then I grabbed my Charlotte Tilbury blush. This is the Charlotte Tilbury Cheek to Chic blush in the original Pillow Talk shade. And I remember I took my same brush, really worked it into the powder, concentrated this high up on the apple of the cheek, and then blended back. Same over the eyes, over the chin, and whatever's left I took on my neck. And then I remember I stepped back from the mirror and I remember thinking, I was like, oh no, I've gone overboard on the blush. Okay, that's okay. Let's buff this down. Let's kind of set everything in place. So then I remember I grabbed the Chanel Puja Universal Libre. This is the older formula. I don't have the new reformulated version. So I use this in the shade 20 Clear Translucent 1. So I'm going to use this with my rougher number 25 brush. And I remember I just set this all over because I remember I felt like I was looking too tan, and this powder, even though it's called translucent, it still has a little bit of color. So I'm like, okay, we will lighten this up, we'll bring it back down to reality and call it a day. And then I remember I stepped back, looked in the mirror, I'm like, no, my skin always has a glow, so now I need more glow to my skin. So then I used my Charlotte Tilbury Charlotte's Magic powder in shade number Fair because this has more of a radiant finish. It's also a little bit more pink, so then it would make my skin tone a little bit more pinky, which is more realistic. And then I used this to buff my skin. So I take a generous amount, press it all over my skin, over my eye, everything. Ooh, you know what? I remember exactly what brush I used because it was my favorite brush at the time, so hold on. But I remember I took my La Mer powder brush, and then this is what I used to buff my complexion. So kind of stipple on the buffing powder. I'll then take a little bit more and just buff this into the skin, kind of like applying that mineral powder foundation. You are going to take your time, you're going to buff this into the skin, and you're going to add back a luminosity to the skin, but then you are also going to kind of meld all the colors from the blush, from the highlight, from the bronzer, blush. You're going to make all of that melt into the skin. So once I had that buffed in, I was kind of like, okay, I like where everything's at, but now I feel like I'm wearing too much makeup. So then, remember, grab my Fix Plus again, basically gave myself a shower in this to melt everything into the skin. So I'm gonna do that and I'll be right back. So once you've successfully given yourself a shower with your setting spray, I then took a dry sponge and I completely doused it in my setting spray. But by doing this, you are making all of that makeup become part of the skin. You are pressing it into the skin. And with this part, it might look like I'm being a little aggressive, because I am. I really want all of that makeup to really sink into my skin and look like it is coming from within. And then I took some of the Too Faced Peach Perfect powder, another great product that was discontinued, to detail my complexion and mattify anywhere I didn't want shine. So next, the only other thing to do was do lips. So Charlotte Tilbury Lip Cheat Pencil in shade Pillow Talk. And I remember I used this to almost like contour the lip. So roughly kind of sketch it under the lower side of my lip, because where this is darker than the color of my lip, it will kind of exaggerate and create like a shadow effect to kind of push it back to, once again, kind of enhance the shape of the lips. To fill in my lips, I took MAC Lip Pencil in the shade Dervish. Used this to fill in my entire lip because this is almost the exact color of my natural lips. MAC Viva Glam 5 lipstick. I love this color. And I remember I just used this, swipe across my bottom lip, and this just kind of created a My Lips But Better kind of color. And then I fully anticipated to bring these with me to the wedding venue to touch up. I didn't. I left them at home on my bathroom counter. And the only thing I had with me to touch up was my Chanel Rouge Cocoa Lip Gloss in the shade Aphrodite, all-time favorite. And I just used this to touch up lips throughout the rest of the day. So once all the makeup on, everything was finished, I had the rest of my suit on. I remember thinking to myself, I don't have a fragrance on. I need a fragrance. And for the day of my wedding, I remember I ended up mixing together 2 fragrances because both of these fragrances make me think about my family. So the first fragrance I used, another wonderful fragrance, also discontinued, but this is by Replica, and this is called Lipstick On. It is a beautiful, very kind of mature, old lady floral scent. It's a very floral, powdery lipstick, and this smells like the old school Estee Lauder lipsticks that has a very kind of floral powder scent. And this scent reminds me of my great grandma's from my Grammy and granddad's side, as well as my dad's mom or my nanny, they all wore like this very distinct scent. And my mom said before she thinks it could be called white shoulders. Some people might know that. That's something I can't think of, but all I know is this fragrance makes me think about my grandma's in the best way, and I wanted that kind of family connection since all of my family was back home due to the pandemic that was going on. And then on top of it, I misted on a little bit of the Jo Malone English Oak and Hazelnut Cologne. And this one I love because this reminds me of my granddaddy, so my mom's dad. And when I was younger, I think he wore, it was either Lauder for men or the Polo, like the green with the gold lid. For some reason, this reminds me of that, and once again, wanted family close, so I layered together these two fragrances on my wedding day, and then I was wedding ready. So the day my body matched my face and my neck because I had a fake tan on, but now you know the kind of chaos that happened on my wedding day when I was getting ready, because I did not plan as well as I thought I would. So if you are going to recreate a look like this on an everyday basis, it doesn't have to be complicated. You can get away with using one foundation that matches your skin tone, one highlight, one blush, one bronzer. Keep it simple, keep it easy, don't overthink things. And if you are doing this for your wedding or a special occasion, do what we would do if you were doing your makeup with a makeup artist. Do a trial run. Plan out ahead of time what you're going to do, because it will just make your life so much easier, because there's so much going on the day of your wedding that it's just crazy. And the last thing you want to worry about is what makeup are you going to use? Is this makeup going to last all day? So if you found this kind of makeup story time helpful, entertaining, and these tips were also helpful, make sure you give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and share it with a friend, because the more kind of exposure, interactions that my videos get, it helps my channel grow in the YouTube algorithm. So I will see you all on the next video. Have a great day, y'all. Bye.